So again, I think that goes to the fundamental human good, meaning that if the the idea of epistemic humility, that you should epistemological humility, that you should be humble in how you approach issues, and maybe you could be wrong.
Yeah.
I totally agree, and that I think is an issue, as I say, sometimes of morality, but very often of pragmatism. You just don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, there are limits to that. So, for example, you wouldn't say, a person who is holding a slave, well, no problem. I mean, he's living how he wants to live. There are certain fundamental values that overrun the sort of cultural, the sort of global libertarianism.
And yet that is an example of a value that contemporaneously to the construction of these ideologies was literally accepted as ordinary.
Not to get into the sort of biblical analysis of slavery, but one of the, I think, most honest ways to read the Bible is as a document that was given to a particular set of people at a particular time, meaning that you have to look at what it's attempting to transform. Meaning if you look at the slavery and the society surrounding, it's a much more liberalized version of slavery that's in the Bible, and therefore a step toward the abolition of slavery, which is exactly how it's been read by every abolitionist preacher in the 19th century. It's been read by...
What do you mean, Israelites, Egypt stuff?
Yes, that, and also even the scriptural, injunctions with regard to you own a slave. How long do you keep the slave? Do you for example, not to get too specifically biblical, but there's a whole section in the Bible where it talks about you are your master's servant, and 7 years go up. At the end of 7 years, you are automatically freed. Right? You can't have a term longer than 7 years in the Bible, and you are given a choice. Do you want to stay with your master or do you want to leave? And so the Bible says that if you want to stay, then we take an awl and we put it through your ear and we give you essentially an ear piercing. Okay, so it's a punishment. The idea is that you should have gone free. There's something wrong with you if you decide to stay in bondage. That's as opposed to the Code of Hammurabi. In the Code of Hammurabi, it's the opposite. If a slave attempts to escape and then is returned to the master, then the master puts the awl through his ear to demonstrate that he owns the slave. So in the Bible, it becomes a flip scenario where it's trying to encourage freedom. And again, it's speaking to a culture in which slavery is commonplace. And so the most honest way to read the Bible is to look at it as both an eternal guarantee in particular areas where it's speaking to basic human nature, and also as a transformative document to the customs of a time, because any document that you give is transformative to the customs of the time. I can't speak the language of astrophysics to people living in 1500 BCE. Right? So that I think is so
it has to be simultaneously allegorical while taking into account that it has
the practicality,
contemporary
and also you
application.
and you have to apply human reason to it in the sense that what you're looking at very often is issues of human nature versus inherent human nature, right? Human nature just exists. So, for example, do not murder is an all-time rule, right? That's not a transformative rule where murder is really common, so we're trying to minimize that. It's like, no, human beings want to murder, you're not allowed to murder. That's an all-time rule. As opposed to certain rules that are obviously an attempt to curb the worst practices of the time, maybe in pursuit of something better down the road. And so that's hard. I mean, it takes human reason to apply to it, and this is why Judaism has, an entire corpus of laws and regulations that are deterministic on this. I think that the thing that, as a partisan of Judaism, the thing that I say that Judaism brings to the table, and I think that Judaism and Christianity come at it from opposite sides, and I'll make the case for Judaism, obviously.
No way.
Yeah, exactly. A shocker.
I'm leaving.
Spoiler alert.
I didn't come here for Judaism.
Is that what Judaism is really about? And you mentioned the commandments, and you kind of said, there's the commandments and there's making God real in your everyday life. That's what the commandments are supposed to do. So what Judaism says is that you are a human being with the capacity for great good and the capacity for great evil, right? You have literally the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer HaTov. You have a desire for good and you have a desire for evil, and these two things are battling in you literally at all times. And what your job is to do is, regardless of what you believe, you do the thing. The thing that is in front of you is the thing that you do. Right, so we have this arcane set of rules, and this arcane set of rules is made to reify the presence of God in your life. And even if you don't recognize that's what it's doing, by you doing these things over and over, you're cultivating virtue through action. So it's like you reach God by doing the thing, whereas I think that Christianity almost comes at it backwards.
And through ceremony.
Right,
exactly. Through your behavior.
Through ritual, through all these things. And Christianity comes at it.
Can you do that speaking Hebrew chanting?
I mean, yes, but it wouldn't be entertaining to anybody. And then
you can't do it. You do that as part of your life. Could you reckon you could have been a rabbi?
There was a time when I was interested in being a rabbi, right? Coming out of high school.
Sort of are one, aren't you?
In a way, I mean, I have a lot of young Orthodox Jews who listen to the show for sure. But and I love studying the Bible and
that is where you would go for guidance. If it came to it, if it comes to a crisis with your children, or a crisis in your marriage, or a crisis in your heart, you're going to Judaism. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Yeah. I think that's fair. I mean, in my understanding of Judaism, obviously, because who else's would apply? But it's I think Christianity comes at it from the other way, and there's a reward in it and there's a risk in it. The reward in it, Christianity.
It's great to see these two agree and disagree but still respect each other. This is how adults should have conversations.
You can't be misinterpreted, people can't get confused. You know what happens if you work in media? People like to change the information so that it suits a particular agenda. If you're in a room with people, then what you're saying is clear. If you say something that people are confused about, you can explain it to them then. If you say something as a joke, people can't pretend that you're saying it seriously. So the information gets manipulated a lot, and people like to cause, like, you know, fake stirs and stuff.
The ability to make a mistake, I think, is crucial, right? Now, number one, I'm not a big fan of apology culture, in the sense that, unless you actually hurt a person, you should only apologize to people you've hurt. And I think that we're a society that basically suggests that you ought to apologize to the air, you should apologize to society at large. The society at large is not a person who hurts, it's a person you hurt who you apologize to.
Yeah.
And sort of the general notion that you can do offensive things and then people have the option not to watch you.
Right.
Obviously, that I think that's the best possible solution to a lot of these things. People have the ability to engage or not engage with your content, and I think that that's a better way of doing it than sort of putting secondary pressure on people who advertise or people who may engage with your content. Well, you shouldn't engage with this content because if you do that, then that makes you complicit, or whatever that is. I'm not a big fan of that sort of attitude generally, but it's.
Nor am I, because it seems, I tell you why.
It's dangerous. There's no limiting principle.
Maybe it's dangerous, and also maybe it's insincere. Even
well,
worse
it's
than
usually
that.
insincere.
Like
It's
that
usually insincere. It's
part
a
of
power game. It's a power game.
Yeah, it's a pact to, can I carry on to make money, please? Like it's like that's, I agree with that. And it's more like instead of perhaps apology, maybe sort of gratitude. Like, be grateful to be in the world, be loving, be embracing, open-hearted. These are the kind of ideas that my sort of spirituality give me to aim towards, like to direct my conduct and to direct my thinking. But I suppose what I'm trying to offer is that I can see validity in sort of many of the points along that journey, even though I wouldn't do now what I did then. And also maybe it gives me the opportunity, like, that if I was to speak to someone who was being sort of incendiary around a particular topic, to sort of say, I understand how you feel. I suppose, yes, it's this. How do we talk to one another with compassion and respect?
Some grace, right? Some grace. So I think that the worst thing that happens in sort of the public debate now is the old tweet game, right? I hate the old tweet game. The old tweet game, which is like, okay, you wrote a tweet back in 2009, and it's now 2023, and I've destroyed your entire career by citing this old tweet from 2009. And it's a game I don't play, right? This you kind of game that they do on Twitter. Is this you? And then they cite a tweet from 2014 on a different topic that doesn't seem to be quite on point, but it's like it's supposed to humiliate you and make you feel bad about what it is that you're saying. Again, I guess the question, the easy way to tell whether somebody's being sincere or not is whether they want an answer. If somebody were to come to you and say, Russell, explain to me what you were doing, back in 2001 when you did that, what was going through your head? Yeah. And you told the story and said, okay, I understand that you wouldn't do it now. That obviously is something. There are a lot of service people who are affected. It was negative. It hurt them. And you'd say, yeah, I wouldn't do it now because I kind of see the downside of having done it. But you can see what I was trying to do. I see what you're trying to do, but it was wrong. That's a conversation. But that's not normally how it's approached. The way that it's normally approached is now Russell Brand. Now he's doing. He wants to be a guy who's warm-hearted and embracing and full of grace. Well, where was he on 9/11 when he was wearing the Osama bin Laden costume? Right. That's not a question. That's an accusation. And the difference between a question and an accusation is a matter of tone. But it's definitely there, and there's this. C.S. Lewis says, and I think that this is right. He says this in the Screw Tape Letters, is that one of the best ways to undermine a marriage, and by extension any relationship, is to take your own words in the best possible light and take everybody else's words in the worst possible light. So you say something and your tone is negative, and the person gets offended by your tone, and they say, but that's not what I was saying, because it was me, and you have to take it at face value. And then they say something like, oh, I know exactly what you meant. I can hear your tone. I think that's really. I think that we've become, as we've abstracted away from the local, you become abstractions to each other. The first thing that you said when we saw each other is, it's good to see you as a person, right? Not on a screen. Even the fact that we mostly interact with each other over screens is a certain level of abstraction. Being in person with someone.
What a great conversation. Two men with opposite beliefs, different views on religion and politics, and different backgrounds come together to find common ground. It makes us reflect and become more open-minded.
Let's have a look at why the FDA are not allowed to call horse paste anymore.
The FDA has agreed to remove and stop reposting several social media messages suggesting is intended for animals and not humans.
You've got to stop and stop repeating. Can we just occasionally on a Saturday say it's a little bit of a paste for animals? No, under no circumstances. Stop saying it. Paste for animals. What did you just say? I said it's a waste for cadgicles.
The court said the FDA's role is not to provide personalized medical advice.
Well, that's amazing, isn't it? That's not the FDA's role even, to provide personal medicalized advice. They're meant to actually oversee clinical trials, regulate pharmaceutical companies from whom they also receive their funding.
However, the FDA still does not recommend it for COVID treatment, saying there is danger of excessive doses.
Trying to get that last bit in. But I will say, even though it's not a horse paste, you could take too much of it and then your butt would clog up and no one would like you.
Taking too much Tylenol can really damage your liver. Why isn't that hidden or banned too?
You can't be misinterpreted, people can't get confused. You know what happens if you work in media? People like to change the information so that it suits a particular agenda. If you're in a room with people, then what you're saying is clear. If you say something that people are confused about, you can explain it to them then. If you say something as a joke, people can't pretend that you're saying it seriously. So, the information gets manipulated a lot and people like to cause, like, you know, fake stirs and stuff.
I've made a lot of mistakes. I've been wrong many times. But I'm beginning to think I'm right about this. The mainstream media is not your friend. The culture is not your friend. The government is not your friend. Big business is not your friend. They are operating collegiately in unison to create a set of systems that are beneficial to them and disadvantage you.
Truth bombs from yet another populist influencer who's now been
And this is why he's being accused of nonsense. He was right on target and they needed to silence him.
John, I've not known you long, but I love you already. But I have to say that it's disingenuous to claim that the biases that are exhibited on Fox News are any different from the biases exhibited on MSNBC. It's difficult to suggest that these corporations operate as anything other than mouthpieces for their affiliate owners in BlackRock and Vanguard. And unless we start to embrace, and also, mate, like, just spiritually, if I may use that word in your great country, we have to take responsibility for our own perspective. I've been on that MSNBC, mate. It was propagandist nutcrackery on there. I went on a show called Morning Joe. It was absurd the way they carried on.
Good Morning Joe. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. It wasn't morning. There was no one called Joe there. No one could concentrate. They didn't understand the basic tenets of journalism. No one was willing to stick up for genuine American heroes like Edward Snowden. No one was willing to talk.
I'm not going to lie. Russell Brand just gave the first political speech that made me emotional.
I hate the old tweet game. The old tweet game, which is like, okay, you wrote a tweet back in 2009, and it's now 2023, and I've destroyed your entire career by citing this old tweet from 2009. And it's a game I don't play, right? The this you kind of game that they do on Twitter. Is this you? And then they cite a tweet from 2014 on a different topic that doesn't seem to be quite on point, but it's like...
Canceling people completely ignores the fact that they can change and grow.
The pandemic created at least 40 new big pharma billionaires. Pharmaceutical corporations like Moderna and Pfizer made $1,000 of profit every second from the COVID-19 vaccine. More than two-thirds of Congress received campaign funding from pharmaceutical companies in the 2020 election. Pfizer chairman Albert Bourla told Time magazine in July 2020 that his company was developing a COVID vaccine for the good of humanity, not for money. And of course, Pfizer made $100 billion in profit in 2022. And may I just mention, finally, and this is also a fact, that you, the American public, funded the development of that. The German public funded the BioNTech vaccine. When it came to the profits, they took the profits. When it came to the funding, you paid for the funding.
Russell Brand is wide awake, ladies and gentlemen. Leave it to a Brit to come over here and tell us.
How true is this? It should be illegal for any private company to donate money to political parties.
As a celebrity, I know all about stuff.
Many of us were so charmed and enchanted by Ricky Gervais's Golden Globe performances that forever now we'll be in Ricky Gervais's thrall. Now, there may be a bunch of things, well, not a bunch of things, one thing in particular that I would say, oh, I know about that, Ricky Gervais, and that thing is, of course, atheism. I'm a believer, as you guys know. But when it comes to the role of celebrity in culture, there's few people that have a more interesting take on it than Ricky Gervais. Here's Ricky Gervais now condemning the celebrity political endorsement. If you ever wondered why Taylor Swift is so important, like she's on the chessboard of politics, she's the queen. She can go in every direction, hip-hop, country, endorsing Joe Biden. But do you care anymore about celebrity endorsements? Do you care anymore? Does it matter to you that Kid Rock endorses Donald Trump, or who's the dude, Dennis Quaid? Do you care anymore? Ricky Gervais thinks that, and has always said, one of his angles is, because Ricky Gervais, he come from a normal background, you know. Ricky Gervais has always said, what are you listening to celebrities for? But I've not watched this yet. This is my first time watching it with you. Let's have a look at Ricky Gervais.
Hi guys, Ricky G here, wellness and beauty influencer. As a celebrity, I know all about stuff, like science and politics. So trust me when I tell you who you should vote for. If you don't vote the right way, that's like a hate crime. It makes me sad and angry, and I'll leave the country. And you don't want that.
My favourite bit is the lingering ending, where I'm assuming Ricky Gervais is shooting this on his own phone in what sounds like a pretty large bathroom to me, and then just lets it run down. Because, of course, what Ricky Gervais has always been good on is remembering who he is and where he's from.
Ricky Gervais tells the truth and doesn't care what people think of him. What he did at the Golden Globes was brilliant.
What does the panel think of the discussion around the Oscars getting rid of gender-specific categories like Best Actor and Best Actress, and how did it work out at the Brit Awards?
As a person who's never won an award, I feel confident in saying that they are vacuous and pointless, a distraction at a time where we need to be coming together around real principles and values. Unless someone wants to give me an award, in which case I'd like...
Russell's recovery from addiction has unlocked his amazing insight, intelligence, and fight for truth and freedom.
Tucker Carlson loses it here as Russell Brand goes on this epic rant.
And I suppose that if you have that kind of polarity, a kind of tension where crisis is beneficial to the most powerful interests in the world, it's likely that you will see a perpetuation of crisis, endless crisis. If the military-industrial complex benefit from war, you will have war. If the pharmaceutical complex benefit from ill health, you will have the perpetuation of ill health. If they require you to eat food that's bad for you and take medicine that's bad for you, then you find that this great, wonderful nation, in which I'm a foreigner, traipsing willy-nilly back and forth that border, instead of the greatest nation in the world, you have a kind of conveyor belt where we're sort of turned into larvae.
Corporations need to be held responsible not just for buying politicians but also for hurting the free market and society. Change will only happen when they are held accountable. Thanks for watching. Russell Brand just showed us how to stand up to the woke crowd while Hollywood is falling apart. If you like this takedown, hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for more videos where we call out the madness. Catch you next time.